I've spent the last year and a half going all in on Apple. And by all in on Apple, I don't just mean an iPad and an Apple Pencil. This is the iPad Pro M2. No Apple setup, of course, is complete without a good AirTag in the mix. So I've got that. And then, of course, no Apple setup is complete without an Apple Watch these days. I see them all around. I think, actually, the Apple Watch is the most popular watch in the world. This is the Apple Watch Series 8 GPS plus cellular. And then, well, we see them everywhere in the laptop space, but I myself picked up a Mac Mini here. This is the Mac Mini, the newest one with the newest chip, the M4. And then, right, well, where's the iPhone? No Apple setup is complete without an iPhone. It's shooting this video. So I've spent the last year and a half going all in on Apple. I bought the iPhone that's shooting this video in October 2023. And then from there, honestly, it just grew and grew and grew. I'm actually more invested in the Apple ecosystem than my wife, who has used Apple always. I don't think she's ever had an Android phone, whereas I used Android for over a decade, and at one point basically swore off Apple because Apple wanted you to do their things their way, their systems, all their stuff. So I said I would never really use Apple, and well, clearly that didn't hold up. So if you want to take a listen to this, there's not going to be a ton happening on screen here. So you can listen to this as a podcast or, click into another browser tab. But I spent the last year and a half going all in on Apple. And they have a very unique way, I would say. And you almost don't realize it's happening, of trying to get you in and in and in to the ecosystem. And it just worked for me in a way that, honestly, on Android, it didn't work too well. I didn't really have a lot of smartwatches on Android. I had a Garmin, and I love my Garmin. We'll talk about the Apple Watch because that's a big key to why maybe I'm not so excited about Apple a year and a half later, which might be strange to say. A lot of people love their Apple Watch, but we'll get into that. Again, it just kind of grew and grew and grew. I'm a guy who loses things all the time, loses things regularly. Where are my keys? I usually have to look around for them to find them. Luckily, before this video, they were in a place I could find. But the AirTags are awesome, and I used to use Tile, but AirTags blow away, at least what Tile was a couple of years ago. Blow it out of the water. With the ultra-wideband on any of the new iPhones, besides the new iPhone 16e for some reason, you can precision find exactly where it is. Your iPhone will have arrows to guide you, and I need that. Okay, I lose stuff. I am not... ask my wife, ask my friends. I am not a very good, person when it comes to just knowing where things like my keys and wallet are. So AirTags, I think, was my first foray into the broader Apple ecosystem, which makes sense. Better than Tile. I didn't like Tile. Yeah, you could kind of use Tile on iPhone, but it just isn't as good as AirTags. And then from there, it kind of grew. I had a Garmin watch, a special edition Darth Vader Vivo Active 4. And that was years and years old, and the battery was starting to degrade, and I beat the crap out of that watch. I loved it. I loved my Garmin Vivo Active 4, Darth Vader edition, whatever you call it. But it was starting to get long in the tooth, so that had nothing to do with Apple. But then I thought, well, if I'm already here, right, that's how Apple gets you, right? Sometimes you don't even realize that it's happening. Apple, they get you. It's like, well, I'm already here, and my other device is kind of, not working quite the way I want it to anymore. And Apple, they have the system integration. You can use Apple Pay on here. You can do Apple Fitness Plus, which I tried. I didn't really like, but there's a lot you can do here. And I also really like the idea of cellular connectivity with my watch because I like mountain biking, but I don't always like my big mountain biking bag. So to be able to have the fall detection that Apple has and be able to stream music and not have to bring my phone. I can leave that in the car, not worry about it getting damaged. And I can have the Apple Watch Series 8 do that for me. I like that idea. And it worked well for a while. Again, we'll talk about the Apple Watch and some of my shortcomings, some of the things I didn't like about it. But then that came next. Then I think the iPad came after that. And I'm not a big tablet guy. I honestly don't use this iPad particularly much. But Costco had a really good clearance deal on these. And I didn't just buy it because it had a good deal, but it was a really good deal. iPad Pro M2 with the high refresh rate screen, everything you see in front of you. I think it was like $499 or something when they were going for $699 or something at the time, something similar to that. And I bought it because in college, I had a Surface Pro 6. So you'll see, right, I had other devices from other manufacturers. I had an Android phone from several different manufacturers over the years. I had a Garmin that was replaced by the Apple Watch. I used to have a Surface Pro 6 years ago, and that got replaced really by nothing. I didn't really need a laptop, so I sold it when I graduated college. But I used that to take notes, I think, junior and senior year of college. And that was awesome. I would put things in OneNote. You can see OneNote down here at the bottom of my iPad screen. And then I would take notes for class. I could a lot of times I could print the slides out ahead of time. And by print, I mean print to PDF, import that to OneNote, then annotate the slides as the professor's talking. It really helped my workflow, really helped me in college. I loved it. But then I had no use for it, right? I wasn't in college anymore. I didn't need that at my jobs. But then recently, I have a podcast. I'll leave a link down in the description. I cover a local professional volleyball team here. And I was taking notes by hand on a piece of paper, in a notebook. And I actually left my notebook, speaking of not being able to find things very well, left my notebook at the arena in the press box. And that just, then I didn't have it. iPad, I'll definitely remember to take in and out, but I love OneNote. I love being able to write down notes. I love being able to do that. And so that's why I bought this iPad, partially. That was actually the main reason, was the note-taking. And yes, there's cheaper tablets that do note-taking. But again, if you're already here, if you're already in the Apple ecosystem, well, why not? And I didn't like the performance of some of the lower-level tablets, like the Fire Tab and I think the Galaxy FE. I didn't like the pen performance. The Apple Pencil is awesome. So Apple, they make high-quality products for the most part. And again, while you're already here, you might as well invest. And I love this iPad. I love the iPad. I like the price I paid for it. I love the note-taking. It's helped my workflow for the podcast immensely. I'll actually put it on. I'll bring it over here. I'll put it on this stand. So my monitor is right in front of me here. And so this is where I'll record the podcast, is basically right in front of me. And I'll put the iPad off to the side and then scroll through it to view different things, look at different things. And I really do like the iPad. I'll put it on this stand here. I bought it for like $15 or $12 at IKEA. So I'll put it on this stand off to the side and then go through it. And this is, again, greatly cut down the amount of time I use on the podcast. The notes are searchable. I don't have to flip through the notebook. I've got everything sorted by tabs. I can easily, if I'm talking in the podcast about the most recent match, I can go right back to a previous tab, and I'll actually show you that. So if I open OneNote here, we can see, right, my notes on, and I know it's in light mode, so it might be hard to see, but we can see my notes, right, that I'm writing down, and you'll have to excuse my poor quality penmanship. But let's say I'm reading this, right, I'm looking at the notes, and I'm talking about what I want to talk about. But then let's say I want to go to a different match and say, oh, well, this match was very similar to this other match. I can click here and scroll through it. Sometimes I can search through things and just say, oh, Bastianelli made it 2-5, and the service error there, and that was very similar to something that happened in this match. And I can go through much faster. Again, I know it sounds kind of strange. Maybe it doesn't sound like the most pro use case of the iPad or the most reason to spend, money on an iPad Pro, even if it was the previous gen model and, a little cheaper. But again, this is how Apple sucks you in. I mean, I think a lot of Apple enthusiasts and a lot of Apple users have been there while I'm already here, so let's just keep investing. And I do love my iPad. So that has been a very positive experience. To this day, I think the iPad is a better experience than any Android tablet that's on the market. I've used quite a few over the years. Samsung's as close as you get, but I was a little frustrated with some of the things there. So the iPad experience has been great. What I will mention is this is where the ecosystem part shows its strength, but also starts to break down. I'm kind of in the Microsoft ecosystem, kind of in the Google ecosystem. So I don't really use iCloud for backup. I don't pay Apple for that. And I don't use iMessage. I thought I would use iMessage on my iPad more. I basically just use my iPhone for that. I don't respond to iMessages on my Mac. I don't respond to iMessage messages on my iPad. I kind of use it as like a disparate device, like a device that's not necessarily connected to another. Same with my iPhone. I don't really do a lot of synergy between them. Yeah, I'll restore from a backup, import my apps and things, but there's not a ton that I'll do that really connects and fuses them all together. The closest I got was an unreleased video where I tried to use Final Cut Pro. You can see that on the bottom of the iPad in the multicam view with my iPhone and the iPad, but I didn't like the video, so I didn't put it up. So that's the iPad. Really like the iPad experience. The Mac experience I really, really enjoy as well. I think the Mac Mini is the best value in computing. And it's weird, again, for me to say Apple and value in the same sentence. Because for years, Apple was not a value, there wasn't value oriented. The value was in the software, the values in the brand, the values in ecosystem advantages that other manufacturers can't match. But the value was not on paper. It wasn't in, it has the best camera, the best specs for the price. And that's still the case with the iPhone. But you're paying for typically the brand, you're paying for the ecosystem advantages, you're paying for the things only Apple can get you. But on paper, right, you could just go spec for spec with anything else. It doesn't match up. The iMac is a little bit like that too, I would say. I think their displays aren't the best, but the Mac Mini is really, really value-oriented. It's a fantastic machine. It's decently light, actually. It's honestly decently portable if you were to take it, I don't know, to your parents' house if you were going there for a while, or I don't know, maybe your parents or grandparents have like a place somewhere, like a second home, and you're going to go stay there for a while. For those that are fortunate enough to have that, I suppose, any kind of scenario where you want to take this, maybe you go to like a WeWorking space, like a WeWork, like a shared working space. Yes, laptops are probably better for that. But the Mac Mini is incredible value, and it's pretty thin, pretty small. You can see the port selection does leave something to be desired. I actually had to buy some USB-C to USB-A adapters online for like $8. You can see it here for some things that I couldn't use USB-C for. But it's a great value because it has that powerful new silicon, the M4 from Apple. And it's awesome. This is what I use to edit my podcast. This is what I'm going to use to edit this video most likely. And the reason I do that is because this is such a quieter machine than my desktop. Even if I put my gaming desktop on like silent fan mode, anything and everything I can do to dampen the decibels, dampen the noise, I cannot get it to be quiet. And the fan basically never turns on. You can see on the bottom, there are holes for ventilation, and there is a fan in here, I believe, that can turn on. It doesn't. I mean, it basically never does. It's awesome. It can drive my 4K display, my big 4K display, no problem. I really like the Mac Mini, but I don't use the Mac Mini very much. I do use my gaming computer to game. Usually if I'm just doing casual web browsing, I'll use the gaming computer. I really just use the Mac Mini for any kind of productivity work, podcast recording, editing, anything where I'm recording audio or video. It's coming into the Mac Mini. So that's really cool. Again, everything's positive about the Apple ecosystem so far, but I'm thinking of leaving the Apple ecosystem after my year and a half in it. And after the positive things I've said, that might be surprising to hear, again, just especially because of how much I've invested. But I'll tell you right now, the iMac or the Mac Mini, keep wanting to say iMac, Mac Mini's going nowhere. I love the Mac Mini. The iPad is going nowhere. I love the iPad, the Pro M2. It's awesome. But there's a few pieces of the Apple sort of way of doing things that have really let me down. And I'll talk about the iPhone first. The iPhone is almost too good at what it does. And that sounds like a strange thing to say, but if you watch this channel, you'll notice perhaps a theme in what I've been talking about, especially in the last few videos, is lessening environmental impact, which I actually think Apple does a pretty decent job of, but lessening environmental impact, trying to be more present in your surroundings, maybe trying to de-emphasize technology a little bit more, which is odd, right? Because again, I invested in this Apple ecosystem, but I wanted to do that to make my life easier. I wanted to invest in the Apple ecosystem to reduce the time I spend on podcasts, and that's what the iPad and the Mac Mini have done for me. I don't have to spend as much time editing the audio to get, it sounding good. When my gaming computer, it sounds like a fan, trying to blast off over there. So I wanted to sort of use the technology to get my way out of the technology a little bit faster, not have to spend as much time with it, on it, and so on. And the iPad, the Mac Mini have accomplished that. 10 out of 10, love the iPad, love the Mac Mini. AirTags, I suppose you could say in the frame here, those have accomplished it too. I spend less time looking for my stuff. So for the most part, Apple's accomplished what I set out to do, which was spend less time on technology. But again, there's been some things that have been disappointing, and I'll start with the iPhone, which is recording this video here. The iPhone, number one, this is a 128 gig iPhone that I'm recording on, and I had to delete a lot of different things. I have to constantly go through and prune my storage to delete items to be able to record a video. So I would be not surprised, you could say, if in the process of recording this video, I get a message that my iPhone storage is filling up and I have to clear storage to keep recording video. That has been an extreme annoyance, especially recently. Like I said, I do have a podcast, and I'll go record audio using the same iPhone and same microphone I'm using now. And I'm worried sometimes about, am I going to have enough storage space to record the video? I don't want to lose audio from a post-game interview, a one-time opportunity I can't get back because my iPhone storage is filling up. And I didn't have as much of a problem as this on Android because I do pay for Google Photos. I've paid for that for years, so I have Google Drive storage, so it does back some things up and move them off the phone storage, I believe. And I don't do that with Apple. So some of that's on me, but I would just say some of it is just, again, that just 128 gigs is not enough for like a pro phone. And we've started to see that in other devices that at this level, or I suppose at similar price points. The Motorola Razr Plus, yes, it's a totally different phone. I know it's not that comparable, but that starts at 256 gigabytes, not 128. I do believe the Galaxy S25 Ultra also starts at 256 gigabytes. And then I know the OnePlus 13 just came out. You can't get that phone in 128 gigs. So a lot of manufacturers with a similar price point to the iPhone, when this retailed, it was $1,000. You can still get an iPhone 16 Pro, 128 gigs for $1,000. The other manufacturers in this price segment competing for some of these same consumers realized, hey, look, 128 not enough for what these people want to do. And it's true. I can verify it is not enough for what I want to do. It's been very disappointing for the storage space. So I wish Apple would, at least on the Pro phones. I understand not everyone needs a lot of storage space. So keep the 128 gig option for, for cheaper devices. The iPhone 17, when that comes out, make a 128 gig option. Doesn't mean you need to, leave it for the iPhone, the iPhone 17 Pro or Air, whatever they're going to come out with next. And so that was a disappointment and continues to be. I hate pruning my storage. Number two, or I suppose my next item, is really just, again, I haven't used the benefits of the Mac, the iPad, the iPhone together all that much. I do use AirDrop to drop the audio files from my iPhone to my Mac, and it is like magic. It's awesome. I like that. But that's about the only ecosystem benefit advantage that I do. I don't use Final Cut Pro for editing, even though I did want to learn it. I haven't yet. I use DaVinci Resolve still. And I don't respond. You can see it in the corner of my iPad. I have 6 messages. I don't actually have 6 messages. I don't think it's synced over on my iPhone. I just don't use my iPad to respond to messages the way I thought I would. Like if I'm sitting on the couch, I'll use the bigger screen and respond to messages. I don't do that. I spend the time on my iPhone. And that's another thing. Apple almost a little too good at what it does. I spend a ton of time on my iPhone. I mean, a ton of time. And I want to spend a little less time on my iPhone. I do love the iPhone focus modes. They can help me out a little bit there. But Apple, again, almost a little too good at what it does. I spend a lot of time on there. And so, right, that's not really a dig. That's just something that I've noticed, and I maybe want to reduce that time. And so that leads me to another thing. I really wanted to perhaps reduce my time using technology, which again, the devices in front of me have mostly accomplished that. The AirTag does that. The Mac Mini does that. The iPad does it. Actually, yes, I invested in more technology, but these save me time based on the tasks that I'm doing. The iPhone, not so much, right? Pruning the storage, just quite frankly, it's a me problem. I need to probably spend less time on it. And I actually had a plan in place to do that. But again, Apple kind of charting the path first or kind of going their own way when no one really asked them to go their own way. We saw that with the headphone jack. We saw that with various items. The iPhone 15, 16, and I think actually the iPhone 14 as well, are eSIM only in the United States. What does that mean? I'm not going to go into what a SIM is and all that technology in depth, but essentially a SIM, I think it stands for Subscriber Identity Module. You might have to fact check me if I'm wrong in the comments, but what that is basically a way for the mobile carrier, your Verizons, your T-Mobiles, your AT&Ts, and all their MVNOs, to identify who are you? What number is here? What service plan do you have? And all that. And when I would switch Android phones regularly, back in the day when phones were a little more interesting to me then than they are now, I would take the SIM card out. You could put a paper clip in there. Sometimes I'd use a mechanical pencil to do it, or the SIM removal tool. And you'd basically just poke a tray on the side of the phone, take the SIM card out, it's a physical card, move it to the other phone. And then immediately it syncs up with the mobile network and knows, hey, Eddie was using a Google Nexus 6, and now he's using a OnePlus, whatever he's using. And so it immediately switches over, and I have to download my apps and do all those things. But the phone network, they know exactly who I am, where I am, and so on. And so I wanted to have almost a weekender device, or a device I can take with me to the coffee shop that's not going to give me Apple News notifications, that's not going to inundate me with the latest on Trump or Musk or whatever. Because look, it's important for me to stay. My personal philosophy, it's very important for me to stay close to those and know what's happening, and obviously be involved in my country and politics. And I don't want to get into that in this channel, my personal beliefs there too much. But I will say, I don't love, the news distresses me. The news lately, it distresses me. And so if I'm at the coffee shop, I'm trying to write a book right now, I'm trying to do that, or I'm trying to edit a podcast, or I'm just trying to be in the present moment. When I get inundated with notifications, that's a problem for me to stay in that moment. And like I said, could I put my phone on Do Not Disturb, turn a focus mode on? Of course I could. I mean, you can see, well, maybe you can't, it's really small. But in the upper right of my iPad right now, I'm in a personal focus mode, so my notifications are off. But I can't really check my notifications while I'm talking in a video, can I? But again, it's maybe a personal self-control problem. If I'm just sitting at my desk and I have a free moment, I'm going to check my notifications. Even if I have the focus mode on, so nothing alerted me, I'm checking the notifications. And so I purchased, it's supposed to be here honestly, I think later this year. It's called the Light Phone, and they're not a sponsor. They didn't endorse me. I don't know if the product's any good. There haven't been any reviews of it yet, so I might cancel my pre-order if it's no good. But anyway, the long-winded point I'm getting to is I wanted that to be sort of a weekend device. I'm not going to talk about it here, but it basically gives you calls and messages and maps, and that's it. And I like that idea, the idea of unplugging, the idea of I don't have to always be connected to Reddit or see what if someone liked the Instagram post on my pod. I can look at that later. I don't need to look at it right now. Why is that a real-time thing I have to look at this moment? But Apple goes eSIM only. So I don't have that physical card. I can't switch it between the iPhone, the Light Phone at will, and then switch it back. I can't do that. Whereas most Android phones, I haven't actually seen an Android phone without it. They still have the physical SIM card support. So if I want to switch over from a Google Pixel to the Light Phone when I go to the coffee shop, or when I, want to unplug for a little while, maybe just listen to a podcast, go for a walk. Again, I don't need all the notifications. I can do that. And again, is this somewhat a me problem? Could you easily look at this and say, well, Eddie, that's a you problem. You don't need another device for that. You can just, train yourself, learn to not, interact with notifications. And you're right. But I would say, as a counterpoint, that these companies, they know what they're doing. They know how to get you to click on the notifications. They know how to get you to subscribe to services. I mean, think of how many streaming services or, other subscriptions you're probably subscribed to. It's a lot. So you can look at me and you can say, look, you need better restraint on notifications and those things. And you're right. You're not wrong. But what I would argue is these companies know what they're doing. It's almost a losing battle. So I want to unplug. I want to get away from, all the hustle and bustle sometimes, because it is important for me to know what's going on, but not at every moment. I can look at that later. And so, look, the point is, Apple being the only device manufacturer to go to eSIM has reduced flexibility for me. And so that is something personally that I take issue with and might it's making me consider, hey, do I switch to a different device, a different phone to make this happen? Another thing about my iPhone that kind of let me down is the battery life. The battery life on the iPhone 15 Pro is not good. I mean, it's not horrible, but it's not good. My battery runs out, and I actually looked at my battery health. It's in the Apple settings app before this video. Again, I've had it a year and a half, and I just went over. I spent a good amount of time on my phone, but I'm never too far from a charger. I don't know. I don't think I have abusive charging habits or something. My battery health's only at 89%. It's been a year and a half, and I would think that's kind of low. And the battery life's just not very good. Another thing that made me buy into the Apple ecosystem that I kind of am not regretting, but I'm taking their promises and their marketing and their ethos into question a little, is that I work in cybersecurity. That's my day job. And when I work in cybersecurity, obviously privacy is very important to me from a corporate level, but I have a big personal passion for good cyber hygiene, using different passwords for different applications, enabling multi-factor authentication where you can, not having ads and all these things spy on you all the time, so on and so forth. And Apple has very good OS level controls, whether that's on the Mac, whether it's on the iPad, whether it's on the iPhone, in sort of sandboxing apps, putting apps in a space where they can't reach out and just get a bunch of this advertising data or whatever they want to get. So that's a win. That's a good thing. But recently there was a law passed in the United Kingdom that basically said, hey, Apple, we need a backdoor into, encryption and of iCloud, and, we need that for UK residents and so on. And Apple basically said, okay, this end-to-end encryption feature we offer, we're not offering it in the UK anymore. And I suppose they probably had to do that because of the law that had been passed. But I would say that it made me really doubt Apple's claims of, hey, if it's on your iPhone, it's private and this and that. And that's, again, I think it's probably true. They're a huge company and they have audits and various things, but it seems like they'll bend under the pressure. And so the UK government says, hey, let us in. And they kind of went, well, I guess we kind of have to. And so what's preventing that from happening in the United States? And then some of the privacy promises and things I bought into and that they market, they just go away at the flip of a switch on the back end for iCloud. So that did make me think very long and hard, not just about Apple, but where I store my other cloud data in Microsoft and Google. And I'm going to start hosting more of that at my house because I control it. And it's not, at the whims of the prevailing winds aren't just taking control of whatever it is. So that's another item that just made me pause and go, huh. The last thing I'll get into is honestly my biggest letdown with the Apple ecosystem, bar none. And that is my Apple Watch Series 8 GPS plus cellular and the Apple Care experience I had. So I have Apple Care on 0 devices except for my Apple Watch. And there's a reason I did that. I mentioned earlier that I had a Garmin. I really liked my Garmin, but I beat the crap out of my Garmin. I really did. And I that's how I use a smartwatch. If I'm wearing a traditional watch, which I do very regularly, of course, I'm not going to go banging that into stuff. But if I'm wearing a smartwatch or an exercise watch, I use it to exercise. That's the primary driver for me. I know some people want notifications and this and that, but the primary driver for me using an Apple Watch is exercise, or any watch, Garmin, anything. And so I was working. You can't really see it too well in this video. I'd have to probably get another light over here, but they're pretty apparent, and I can actually run my finger over them and feel them. There's scratches on the bottom of my Apple Watch screen that are decently, I would say, annoying. I get really annoyed by that kind of thing, but no worries. I had Apple Care. So I'm going to go to Apple. I'm going to run in. I'm going to get this replaced. I get there and I didn't make an appointment. So I waited. No issue. I waited because I didn't make an appointment. No, I didn't have a problem with that. But then after I do that, and I guess before this, I should mention, I chatted with Apple support and I sent them a photo of my device. I sent them a photo with proper lighting so you could see this. There you go. You can see the scratches now. So they could see the scratches. And I said, look, this is why I want my Apple device replaced. And I have Apple Care. And they said, okay, well, you can do this express replacement thing. or, you could take it into an Apple store. And I said, well, maybe the Apple store will have what I want. And I've heard great things about the Apple store. I've been in one a few times, but I didn't have Apple devices. I've heard great things. You have Apple Care, they'll kind of just replace your stuff. It's the best extended warranty that's on the market. So I go into the Apple store, I wait. Again, no issue there. And then the person gets to me and they say, oh, well, because it's scratched and not cracked, we're not going to replace it. And I basically then insinuated, which, this is ridiculous to me. Oh, so I could basically go outside, smash this with a hammer, inflict more damage, and then who knows what happens to the internal components, and then bring it in, and then it'd get replaced. And they basically were like, yeah, which is insane to me. I need a screen replacement. If I went out and smashed it, again, which I'm not going to do, maybe that's going to mess up, some internal componentry, and then that has to be replaced. What's the environmental impact of that? That's just stupid to me. It's dumb. This is scratched. I paid for Apple Care. And I should get it replaced. I mean, it's annoying. The scratches, again, I can feel them with my finger, and I can see them in proper lighting, especially very well. And so, that just really frustrated me, something that happened to me last week, because I thought Apple was different. And that's what I heard over the years. Apple's different. They're going to take care of you. And, their retail footprint would suggest it. I mean, there's no Motorola store around. There's no Google store, unless you're in a major metropolis like a big city, so on and so forth. There's no OnePlus store that I know of, at least in the United States. So those manufacturers are not out there with a people-facing presence. You have to deal with them online. Apple, you can go into a store and talk to someone, and that was just really annoying to me. I've dealt with various warranty replacements under the normal warranty, not even any extended warranty like an Apple Care, with different manufacturers. And my best experience was probably with OnePlus. My worst experience was definitely with HTC. I had a pretty decent experience with Motorola once as well. So I've had good warranty replacement experiences when I've needed them. But this was something I paid for. I actually paid extra for what's supposed to be, the no questions asked service, right? That's how they market it. And I know the terms don't say it and all that, but that was something that got to me. Is, look, if Apple's going to do this backwards logic thing around, well, it's not cracked, but if you brought it in cracked, we'd replace it. Otherwise, you have to pay for this. They didn't explain the option well, this express replacement service. It's like $70, which is honestly okay, but it wasn't made clear to me, okay, can I use the express replacement service if the screen's scratched, or does it have to be cracked? That wasn't explained to me well in the store. And so if Apple's going to use the same logic a lot of these other companies do, and they're not going to be different when they're, friends, family, Apple's marketing, etc., to me insinuates, hey, they are different. That was bothersome to me. But also, I'll mention, I don't even like the Apple Watch. So even if it's replaced, I don't even like it very much. It does do very good heart rate tracking. You can read online, especially the newest Apple Watches. But even this one, it does heart rate tracking really well, and that's something I appreciate. GPS tracking is nice. It fits pretty good on my wrist. So no real complaints there. But what I will say is, I just don't like it. I don't like the Apple Watch. I had the cellular connected version, and the reason for that was I like leaving my phone behind, but I also like listening to music without my phone. I just basically don't want to run with my phone, don't want to bike with my phone if I don't have to. At Apple, they don't have it, and this is partially on Google, but there's no YouTube Music app. Can't use YouTube Music. That's my preferred music platform of choice is YouTube Music, and no YouTube Music app on here. There was a Spotify app, so I used that when I had Spotify. That was cool. But no YouTube Music app, and there is in the Google ecosystem. So some of that is, Google being Google and all that. But that was a major downer for me because I get great value out of YouTube Premium and YouTube Music, and I am sad it's not here on the Apple Watch. Is that Apple's fault? No, not really. But do I like it? No, I don't. I also hate the battery life. The battery life on the Apple Watch sucks, and it sucked ever since I bought it. It hasn't been good ever. It's never been good. I came from a Garmin that even when the battery was degrading and I said, oh, I'll sell it, was still lasting, I think, 2 days or 3, maybe 2.5 days. And then at its peak, when it was like new and working good and, years previously, it would last like 5 days, 6 days. So I would wear it all the time, and it would track all these different things about me, my steps, my runs, this and that. The Apple Watch basically lives on my charger until I'm going for a run or a bike. So it gets a very limited view into my fitness, and I'm trying to improve my fitness goals this year. The Apple Watch gets a very limited view into that because honestly, I forget about it. It's just a human psychology thing. I wear traditional watches a lot of the time. I forget about my Apple Watch. Sometimes I go look for my Apple Watch. It's dead. And I'd go look for my Garmin watch. Usually it'd still be alive. So I really liked my Garmin watch way better than the Apple Watch. I've even heard really good things about the Google Pixel Watch. The battery life, maybe not so much, but a lot of the other features are really, really cool. Amazfit, some decent devices. So good stuff out of other manufacturers, but the Apple Watch has been the biggest letdown for me, bar none. I mean, it's not a bad watch. You know, it does, again, good heart rate tracking. It does good GPS tracking, but the battery life is like bad. It's just bad. And I know I had it cellular connected, right? So that's going to make the battery life a little bit worse. But if you know that, if you're going to sell the product that way, then sell a product with a bigger battery in it. Apple Watch with the Series 10, they made it thinner. They didn't really make it last longer. I would have appreciated, give me the same thickness, figure out a way to get a bigger battery in here. I also don't love square watches. That's another thing. Android, Garmin, everything else out there, you can get a round watch, you can get a square watch, you can get any kind of watch. Apple Watch, any shape you want, as long as it's a square. So the Apple Watch I haven't liked. It hasn't fit my needs very well. It hasn't helped me get more fit and in shape. Garmin has the Garmin Coach, which is a free feature, which adapts to your, or it was when I used it, who knows if it is now, but it adapts to your running and what you're doing to get you ready for a 5K, and I used that a few times. It did really well. Apple, you got to pay. Got to pay for Fitness Plus. You got to pay up for those sorts of features. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. The only real positive I would say about the Apple Watch, like a pleasant surprise beyond what I already talked about with GPS tracking and heart rate and those things, is at my gym, I can tap my Apple Watch to the treadmill and it will auto sync with the treadmill. So it will get a better, more accurate view of what I've done on the treadmill. That'll work with Samsung and Apple. It won't work with Garmin or Google, which is really annoying, but that's a positive. So if you need those types of integrations, maybe the Apple Watch is for you. I really haven't liked it. So that's why I'm thinking about switching from the Apple ecosystem. I want to spend less time on my phone, and Apple's basically the only manufacturer where I can't switch to another phone at will because of the whole eSIM thing. The Apple Watch has really let me down. My Apple service attempted experience didn't go well. I was disappointed with the level of service I received with Apple Care, basically saying go smash your device, bring it back, or use the express replacement. But again, would that even work? They were unclear on it, and the Apple support person online said, yeah, bring it into the store. So that was disappointing and annoying, but there have been bright spots. AirTags are awesome. If I do switch, I'm going to miss AirTags, no question about it. The iPad is great. I love the Apple Pencil. I bought a refurbished one for a good price from Apple directly, so I saved money on the Pencil. It works great for my workflow. It helps me do my hobbies better, and it reduces my time with technology. So the Mac Mini, the iPad, flying colors, 10 out of 10. You have to pry these off my cold, dead body probably. I really do like these products. But I have to say, if I switch from the iPhone, let's say I switch from the iPhone and the Apple Watch and the AirTag, I'll probably miss the AirTag most. The iPhone, again, it hasn't been great. The battery life hasn't been great. I can trade it in for the same price basically that I bought it for through that carrier deal, so I wouldn't lose any money on it. So I don't know. What am I going to do? It's just been a unique perspective, right? As someone who works in cybersecurity, someone who has a podcast as a side hobby, and someone who ended up more invested in Apple than their own wife, who had never had an Android phone, only on Apple for basically ever. Her iPad was so old, she just doesn't use it anymore. She does have a MacBook, I suppose, but doesn't even have an AirTag, doesn't have an Apple Watch. She has a Garmin. So I ended up more invested in the ecosystem than her through kind of Apple's, hey, if you're already here and you need something, then well, just use us. But turns out maybe that wasn't the best choice for me long term. What did you think of this video? Let me know in the comments down below. I know it was more of a vlog or a video podcast than a true video. But what do you think of the thoughts in this video? Am I going to switch to Android or not? I would say probably, but we'll see. We'll see. The OnePlus 13 is nice. The Google Pixel is nice, but there's no phone that screams to me like, hey, it's awesome. So let me know what you thought in the comments down below. I will mention I did buy AirPods Pro as well, but I returned them. I didn't like them. So didn't like everything in the Apple ecosystem. I actually like these nothing earbuds a lot better. So I was really going down the Apple rabbit hole, but now that I've had some frustration and my iPhone's filling up and the battery life's not good and I can't switch the SIM to this sort of minimal phone I'm looking into, I kind of desire and like that flexibility that Android can provide. So that's where I'm at. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and I will see you in the next one.